Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're taking a seriously fascinating 3D journey into a region of the human body that's highly complex, but honestly beautifully structured, the axilla. Now, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by textbook anatomy, constantly trying to memorize those endless lists of muscles and nerves, I want you to just drop the flashcards right now. Seriously, toss them. Today, we aren't rote memorizing a single thing. Instead, we're going to visually construct this anatomical space in our minds, step by step, right in front of our eyes. It's like building a 3D model in your head.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to build the axilla exactly like a room in a house. Here is our blueprint. First, the gateway concept. Second, the four walls. Third, the inlet and floor. Fourth, we'll furnish the space with the core contents. And finally, we'll hit the clinical reality.
All right, section 1, the gateway concept. Let's define our space. Before we start laying down our anatomical bricks and mortar, I really need you to mentally prepare to visualize.
So what exactly is the axilla? Well, in plain terms, it's the region we all commonly call the armpit. But anatomically, it is an absolutely crucial, non-negotiable gateway. Think about it. Any major structure, whether it's a blood vessel or a nerve, that needs to travel from the neck down into the arm or from the arm back up into the neck and thorax, it must pass through this specific region. It's basically the grand central station connecting your upper limb to the rest of your body. If you want to visualize its overall shape, think of an irregular pyramid. Specifically, picture an inverted Egyptian pyramid that's been tucked directly under your arm. So it doesn't have a sharp point at the top. Instead, it has this flat, open inlet where everything enters, and then it extends down into the space right between your arm and your chest.
Moving right along to section 2, the four walls. Now that we know the shape and the purpose, it's time to actually erect the four walls of our anatomical room.
Let's start with the front, and I want you to actually do this with me right now. Reach over and physically grab the large chest muscle on the front of your armpit. Ask yourself, what are you holding?
You guessed it, you are holding the pectoralis major muscle. That is the primary structural beam of our anterior wall. But if we peel that back, we find a few hidden layers in there. Right behind it sits the pectoralis minor muscle, which is safely enclosed within a protective sheet called the clavipectoral fascia. And tucked right up under the collarbone at the very top of this wall is a tiny little muscle called the subclavius. Together, all of these form the solid front wall of our axillary room.
Now, let's look to the outside, the lateral wall. Keep your spatial deduction going here. What major bony structure makes up the outer boundary of this space, sitting right there inside your upper arm? It's the humerus, and this brilliantly illustrates how bone and muscle just work together so perfectly. The lateral wall is primarily anchored by the humerus, your upper arm bone. Specifically, it involves a little channel on the bone called the bicipital groove. This groove beautifully hosts the tendon of the long head of the biceps, and right alongside it, attaching to the humerus, is the coracobrachialis muscle. Now, because the humerus sits right up against the chest, this lateral wall is actually quite narrow compared to the others. Keep that in mind. That leaves us with two walls to complete our structure, easily summarized right here. The medial wall, which is the inner wall closest to your body, is formed by the ribs, the intercostal muscle sitting right between those ribs, and the serratus anterior muscle originating from them. Now spin around to the back. The posterior wall is anchored by the scapula, specifically its front-facing or costal surface. Plastered onto this surface is the large subscapularis muscle, accompanied by the teres major and latissimus dorsi muscles. Boom. Just like that, you visualized and built all four walls of the axilla.
Section 3, inlet and floor. Let's complete this architectural masterpiece by throwing on a ceiling and a foundation. So the top of our pyramid isn't actually closed off. It's a triangular opening called the cervico-axillary canal. As the name suggests, it connects the cervical region, the neck, to the axilla. If you visualize the top of your shoulder, this opening is rigidly bounded by three bones: the clavicle in the front, the first rib medially, and the upper border of the scapula in the back. Basically, this is the busy doorway where all those vital structures just drop straight down into the room. Looking down to the bottom, the floor of the axilla is just wonderfully simple. It's a naturally concave base that curves upwards towards the interior. It isn't made of heavy bone or thick muscle at all. It's simply sealed by the skin of your armpit and the underlying fascia. That's the whole shebang for the floor. All right, section 4, core contents. Our axillary room is completely constructed. The walls, ceiling, and floor are securely in place. Now it's time to furnish it.
Because this is the ultimate transit hub we talked about, the primary residents flowing through this space are major blood vessels and nerves. The main contents are the axillary artery, the axillary vein, and that massive nerve network known as the brachial plexus. We also have axillary lymph nodes and plenty of fat and areolar tissue just filling in all the empty spaces, kind of acting like biological packing peanuts to provide a soft cushion for all these crucial structures.
Now, I want you to really notice the specific arrangement of the nerves here. The brachial plexus travels through in these segments known as cords, and they are named entirely based on their position relative to that central axillary artery. We have a medial cord, a lateral cord, and a posterior cord, perfectly splitting the space. Notice what's missing, though. Yep, there is no anterior cord. None. By simply visualizing the artery sitting right there in the center, you instantly know exactly where to find the nerves surrounding it. But listen, these immensely important structures don't just float freely in the axillary fat. No way. The axillary artery, the axillary vein, and those brachial plexus cords are safely bundled together. They are securely wrapped inside a protective fibrous envelope known as the axillary sheath. This ensures they travel together smoothly and are protected from friction and compression every single time your arm moves around. Which brings us to Section 5, Clinical Reality. Why does mastering the specific geography of the space actually matter outside of an anatomy exam? Let's connect this 3D map back to the real world. Because the floor of the axilla is formed by that concave skin we mentioned, which is super rich in hair follicles, it's uniquely susceptible to a specific issue. If an axillary hair breaks or gets damaged, it can easily lead to an infection of that hair follicle. Within the confined, warm space of the axilla, this can rapidly develop into incredibly painful localized infections known clinically as furuncles, or more commonly, axillary boils. Knowing the exact bounds of the axilla helps medical professionals understand exactly where these infections are contained and how they might spread if left unchecked.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. Anatomy isn't just a list of dry, abstract words on a textbook page. It's architecture. It is 3D geometry. As we've just seen with the axilla, structured, spatial thinking beats stressful rote memorization every single time. Seriously, by simply remembering the walls of a room today, you just effortlessly recalled nearly a dozen anatomical relationships. How cool is that?
The axilla is just the beginning. Now that you've successfully visualized and furnished the complex gateway between the neck and the arm, what other intimidating, complex parts of the human body can you master simply by building them in your mind like a room? Keep visualizing, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.